Suburbs erupt. He misses, but they don't miss out. Their day, their year, their joy.
The AFL Grand Final is arguably the greatest day in Australia's sporting calendar. Sure, there is Boxing Day at the G, the NRL Grand Final, the Formula 1 Grand Prix, or even the Oz Open Final, but the AFL Grand Final has consistently delivered great sporting stories as it's become the centre of Australian sport and its identity since the inception of Australian rules football. Above all the great AFL Premiership stories though, I think one stands above all the others. It's not about the greatest team of that season. It's not about a classic come-from-behind victory. It's not even about a particularly tightly contested game. It's about a plucky Victorian football team, with little success in their long history, winning one of the greatest underdog flags the AFL has ever seen. This is the story of the Western Bulldogs, against all odds at every step on their journey, winning the 2016 AFL Premiership. The Western Bulldogs Football Club have a long and battling history in the AFL. Founded in 1877 and joining the VFL in 1925 as the Footscray Bulldogs, they were a team to represent the Aussie battlers in the western suburbs of Melbourne. Success was very hard to come by in those early days, with their first flag coming in 1954 after thumping Melbourne. It was the 57th VFL Grand Final to be contested. Their next Grand Final appearance would come in 1961, where they fell short to Hawthorn, giving the Hawks their first flag. Fast forward 35 years to 1996, they changed their name to the Western Bulldogs after a tumultuous period of time where the Dogs almost disappeared from the league due to financial struggles. During this entire time, they didn't compete in a single grand final while other clubs rose and fell around them, finding success and financial stability. On top of this, in their entire history, they have never finished on top of the ladder to claim the minor premiership, which still stands as the longest minor premiership drought in AFL history. So here we sit with a long-standing club starved for success, a supporter base of battlers perfectly representing the culture at the Dogs, and no signs of winning a grand final anywhere in the future. So what next? Well, the club showed signs of life throughout the mid to late 90s with fairly consistent finishes near the top of the ladder, but they could never convert that into a grand final appearance, let alone a flag. Again in the late 2000s they showed potential but still couldn't convert it into a grand final appearance. After falling out of finals in 2011, it looked like the Dogs would yet again be swimming in a pool of mediocrity for years to come. So let's take a quick recap of where the Bulldogs are at. Since 1925, they have one premiership, have never finished a season first on the ladder, have had very few chances at a grand final berth that they never capitalised on, and now in the early 2010s have been forced into yet another rebuild. So we sit at the start of the second decade of the millennium. The Bulldogs continue their fall from finals. By 2014, they finish 14th on the ladder, an improvement of just one spot over 2013. Their old coach, Brendan McCartney, is out after just 2 seasons as he resigns, and their captain and best player, Ryan Griffin, requests a trade to the AFL's newest team in GWS. All this within the space of 2 days in the 2014 off-season. Several other key players leave during that time as well, slowing down what was already a painfully slow rebuild. Things seem to go from bad to worse for the Dogs, sitting in no man's land on the ladder, with little relevancy in the AFL, a spot they had become unfortunately familiar with. But just as troubles peak for the Dogs in 2014, their story starts to turn around, and the great underdog tale begins. The board set to work at fixing the club, appointing Luke Beveridge as their new senior coach, and veteran Bob Murphy gets called up to captain the club, which would prove to be a crucial step in the right direction. The 2015 season was predicted to be a struggle for the Dogs as they worked through their teething issues of a new coach, new game plan, and a new look best 22 on the field. However, in a sign of things to come, against all odds, they finished 6th on the ladder and only just fall short in an elimination final to Adelaide, going down by 7 points. So now we get to 2016, the crux of this story. The Bulldogs go into the season with positive energy, coming off of 2015 where they exceeded all expectations. Injuries would plague them all throughout the 2016 season, and even though they would finish their regular season with a putrid loss to 16th place Fremantle in Perth, they would finish 7th on the ladder, booking a second elimination final in 2 years. And this is where the underdog story really gets good. So they've just lost to Fremantle in the last round of the season, have to fly back home to Melbourne, and then immediately fly back to Perth to face the West Coast Eagles on their home turf, football's hardest fortress. The Eagles were coming off a 2015 grand final appearance, and even though they finished 6th on the ladder, a lot of AFL media predicted them to make a strong run in finals and to make the grand final again after underperforming during the main season. So the Bulldogs make the finals after a tumultuous season of injuries, only to face football's hardest road trip against the second best team last year and a team who looked to make a strong run for the grand final. And you know what happened? The Bulldogs embarrassed them. At every quarter time break, the Bulldogs were in front, and by the third quarter, ABC commentators are shouting, "Stick a fork in the Eagles, because they are done." The likes of Liam Picken and Caleb Daniels make a name for themselves in breakout games against quality opposition. It was an unbelievable effort from a plucky Bulldogs outfit who humbled the star-studded Eagles on their home turf, something that no one saw coming. So the Bulldogs have surprised everyone with an underdog victory in round 1 of finals. They avoid elimination and move on to the semi-finals. But things are about to get a whole lot harder. Of all the teams to come up against in the semi-final, the one team the Dogs didn't want to face was the Hawthorn Football Club. You see, the Hawthorn Hawks were the best team in the league at the time, and it's not even a debate. They had won the last 3 premierships in a row without really facing a challenge. They had a dominant and classy best 22, the greatest coach of the modern era in Alistair Clarkson, and were predicted to make it 4 flags in a row in 2016, what would have been a record-equaling achievement. The Dogs had faced football's hardest road trip and won, only now to face football's hardest assignment outright, the untouchable Hawks at the MCG. This time the Bulldogs would be on the back foot for the first half of the game. At half-time, the Hawks held the lead and everyone thought that the Hawks would run over the top of the Dogs and crush them in the second half, which is how everyone saw the game going the whole time. But in true Dark Horse fashion, the Dogs wouldn't lie down and lose quietly. By three-quarter time, the Bulldogs had built some unbelievable momentum and taken a comfortable lead. By the end of the game, the Dogs had made the Hawks look second-rate, beating the reigning premiers, the best team in the modern era, and the triple premiership juggernauts, 107 to 84. The defining moment of the game coming when the brightest Bulldog star in Marcus Bontempelli outmuscled the 2-time Norm Smith medalist, hard-nosed player and Hawthorn icon Luke Hodge, taking a mark in front of goal in a genuine one-on-one contest. I don't think this game gets talked about enough because the Bulldogs achieved a near impossible thing that had massive ramifications on the AFL. They stopped the Hawks from breezing through to a 4-peat premiership run. The Hawks are often regarded as the greatest AFL club due to having consistent success since the AFL turned into a genuinely serious sports league in the second half of the 20th century. They had competed in the last 4 grand finals and had won the last 3 grand finals in a row, only really being challenged in one of them, and even that's debatable. They were clinical, merciless, untouchable and unbeatable. But the Bulldogs came from nowhere with no history of success and brought a team of misfits and young guns from 7th place on the ladder to beat the team no one thought could be beaten. It's a win that's arguably as great as what was to come for the Dogs. So the Bulldogs have now won 2 finals in a row for the first time since 1961 and book a spot in the preliminary final. And of course, it's another mammoth challenge away from home. They would travel to Sydney to face the Greater Western Sydney Giants. The Giants were the newest team in the AFL and at the time were often referred to as the AFL's Ferrari because they were a fast, high-performing team funded and built by the AFL itself to win premierships. So yet again we have an underdog story. The plucky, rough and tumble, underfunded Bulldogs facing the extremely well-funded, super slick, star-studded and classy GWS Giants. A team literally built by the AFL to win flags. Amazingly, the crowd at Giants Stadium was evenly split between the home Giants fans and Bulldogs fans who travelled up to watch their beloved team. If anything, there was more Dog fans in the stands than Giant supporters. Those fans in attendance, however, were treated to one of the greatest AFL finals the game has ever seen. The game was a seesawing affair, with no team pulling away without the other team coming back. The Dogs would hit the front late, but no one knew who would win until the final minutes of the game. In a game-defining fourth quarter moment, Jason Johannisen would break through a pack with the ball, sprint through the middle of the ground and kick it to half forward where Marcus Bontempelli would run onto it and boot it through for a goal, taking the lead back from the Giants. The final commentary from ex-Bulldog Luke Darcy on Channel 7 would sum up the game as the final siren went. I've been waiting to say this for as long as I can remember. The Bulldogs go through to a grand final.
I've been wanting to say this for as long as I can remember. The Bulldogs go through to a grand final. Can you believe it? The siren will sound. A 55-year drought ended. The Dogs are in the grand final.
Yet again, against all odds, the Bulldogs did what no one thought was possible and beat the AFL's Ferrari to make the first grand final since 1961. You might be thinking by now, how can the Bulldogs still be underdogs after passing 3 of footy's hardest assignments 3 weeks in a row to make the grand final? Well, coming from 7th on the ladder to make a grand final is unprecedented. The lowest a team has ever won a flag from is 5th on the ladder, and now the Western Bulldogs come across the Sydney Swans for the grand final. Sydney had finished 1st on the ladder this season and laid claim to being the only team to beat Hawthorn during their run of 4 consecutive grand finals. This was a team of superstars who had a ton of grand final experience and were hungry for a flag. Even after this miracle run from the Dogs, it was believed that the run ended here. The Swans would embarrass them on the big stage and the Dogs would be left to wait for another flag. But I'm sure you've learnt by now, never write off the Bulldogs. The Swans would start strong and by half-time would hold a narrow lead, but it was close and the Dogs would not let go of the Swans' tail. There was a feeling of momentum shifting in the third quarter and the Dogs would show a level of class and grit that no one had seen from them before. They took a lead into three-quarter time, and in a game that's already a grand final for the ages, the stage is set for either team to take hold and go all the way. This game is full of game-defining and iconic moments, but in the fourth quarter there was one moment which takes the cake. The Bulldogs have pulled away with a 2-goal buffer, but Sydney aren't giving up and are coming back strong. The moment arrives when Bulldog battler Dale Morris would tackle Buddy Franklin, stopping the league's best goal kicker in his tracks. Millionaire man Tom Boyd would then scoop up the loose ball and show the AFL world why he was on big money at the Bulldogs, kicking the ball from 70 metres out, bouncing in an open goal square before sailing through to extend the lead to 15 points with 5 minutes in the clock. A lead that would prove too much for the Swans to make up. If you want to relive this iconic moment, go and find on YouTube all the different commentaries of this play. They're all iconic calls and will send shivers down your spine. This is the moment right here. This is the moment the Bulldogs were home and the damn wall was busted. The 62-year-long premiership drought had just received a torrential thunderstorm. The Bulldogs, against all odds, wins their second ever premiership. Luke Beveridge hands his medal over to injured captain Bob Murphy, who in the ultimate bittersweet moment is rewarded for his ultimate service and sacrifice to his beloved Bulldogs in their darkest hour. He gets to raise the cup with the stand-in captain Easton Wood, and the ultimate underdog story is complete. I truly believe this is the greatest story that Aussie rules football has ever told. It personifies everything that is great about sport. This moment is sport in its purest form. It's the enjoyment and escape that sport brings to so many people. It's the reason people support their team no matter how they are performing. This was the day that the Western Bulldogs Football Club, a club that had basically no success in its long history, had almost not survived the AFL expansion, had no financial stability, and had no hope of winning a second flag, became the ultimate underdog winners when they came from 7th on the ladder, had a miracle finals run, and won the grand final, 62 years after their only other premiership. It truly is the greatest underdog story ever told, and it's truly the greatest story in Australian rules football. Hey guys, welcome to this documentary debrief, which is where I play the credits and just have a chat about some final thoughts and things I didn't include in the video for various reasons. Firstly, I really hope you enjoyed this video. It was so much fun to make. Really is one of the greatest stories in, if not sporting history, then certainly Australian rules football history. I got chills throughout the whole process of making this video. I don't go for Western Bulldogs, but this is really probably my favourite footy story of all time. I just love it so much. I can still remember like it was yesterday watching the grand final with, all my family around, and we were just cheering so hard for the Dogs, except for the one Sydney supporter that was there with us. He had a rough day, but, it is what it is for them, I suppose. They've had other opportunities in grand finals, but yeah, I really just hope you enjoyed this video and, got to experience the journey that the Bulldogs went on even a little bit through this. I couldn't imagine what it would have been like being a Western Bulldogs supporter. It really was their day. Yeah, just awesome. The one obvious thing that I didn't mention, because it wouldn't have made any sense in the video, but all the Sydney supporters I'm sure have commented it already, is about the umpiring in that grand final. It was certainly, the Bulldogs certainly got the rub of the green from the umpires. I don't think it lost Sydney the game. I think, to be honest, it was always the Bulldogs' day. The fact that they came from 7th to make the grand final with such strong momentum and the opponents they had beaten to get there, it was always going to be the Bulldogs' day. I'm sorry, Sydney fans. To be honest, you've had plenty of other grand final opportunities. I would focus on those rather than, focusing on the umpires in this one. Yeah, it was always the Bulldogs' day. And to be honest, I don't think you'd want to be the team that beat the Bulldogs in a grand final after the history they've had. So, yeah. Anyway, I don't think there's that much more to say other than it's just really the greatest story in AFL. I just love it so much. I could go on about it all day, but I won't. What I will do is ask if that you enjoyed this video, that you subscribe to this channel and like this video, because I'm really putting a lot of effort into these videos. Go check out the other videos I have on my channel as well. It's just a hobby, kind of a passion project for me, this channel, but I really do enjoy it, and it's really cool to see all the positive responses to the previous videos. I hope this one is, just as positively responded to as the others. So please comment below your thoughts on this day. I'm sure all the Bulldogs fans can't wait to leave their comments, so I look forward to that. Anyway, I think that's it from me. So again, please like and subscribe and all that if you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. I've got a couple of really cool videos coming up over the off season for footy, so keep tuned in for those. All right, thanks guys.